how many other people have spent time wondering why Porsche didn't make a 993 turbo.
I think most of the people that listen to this podcast will have the same question.
Hello and welcome to episode 24 of the Collecting Addicts Podcast. Nearly half a year of us wasting our time so you can waste your time. Okay, topics this week. The car you most wish a manufacturer had made, but they never did.
Like that.
I'm going to go straight to Chris Cooper because he's on holiday and he's drunk a bottle of Lady Petrol. So hopefully he's going to dribble at us now.
Yeah. There's a lot to get through. So
how many cars is he allowed to name?
Oh, God, don't worry about him. We'll stop him when we want to.
Is there a noise somewhere? Can someone hear a noise?
I'm doing two.
Any car.
I got four.
Any car that came with standard privacy glass and you couldn't de-spec it.
Yeah.
Anything from a Golf GTI. You know, a Golf GTI, you can have two specs of privacy drug dealer glass, a little bit druggy and fully gone. Anyway, the Geländewagen, G-Wagen, that'd be nice to that. But
can do that, by the way. If you write a letter to them, they'll send you the glass from Graz, and you have to fit it in Mercedes-Benz UK.
Yeah, I know. That's no use to anybody.
It's expensive as well.
E60 M5 V10 needed a manual gearbox or a DCT. The E46 CSL definitely needed a manual gearbox.
Can I stop you there? They did do an E60 for the States, and I've driven it. It's shit.
Was it shit?
If he takes all of our options, he's got pole position here. He better not fuck this up for all of us.
He's done two of mine already.
Cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Cut to the chase.
Yeah.
I've got two things. Best. I've got one thing to show you.
Are you showing us a picture of little Chris?
That's an Audi. Or what is it?
I found on Instagram, somebody's done some AI generated, what would a 1972 Audi 100 all-road look like?
Oh, yes.
Just the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I'll send the picture so we can put it up on the screen while we're talking about it.
I've seen it. It looks great.
It looks really good. Actually,
that's five. That's five. How many more do you want?
So my wine waiter this evening, his camera is going to bring this bottle in a minute. So he pointed out, I'd cut it in my mind. He pointed out.
I hope he doesn't think he's Adrian Newey.
No, he doesn't. I said, yeah, exactly. In 2013, Porsche showed a 904 Living Legend concept. We'll put the picture up. And it was allegedly supposed to have a flat 8 motor in the middle or the back. So, I mean, it's hundreds of things it could have made that, we never saw. The W12 Nardo thing, the W12 engine without turbos, that was amazing. But the one I would, if I could only have one, because we've got the silly rule.
That was the question in the first place.
That's a silly rule, but I'm going to have one. It would be that 2013 904 Living Legend with flat 8. I mean, just...
Well,
wonderful.
You know what? Irritatingly, you've happened across a great answer, but the way you got there was you've let yourself down. Right, Neil Clifford.
Right, I'm keeping this simple. Two cars that I would definitely 100% have bought if they existed. And I'm curious why Porsche never did a 993 turbo cab. Because actually they did cabs on all of the turbos, 930, 964, 996, 997, 991, 992. There's a gap there in 993 cab. And what a fantastic car that would be, because the 993 turbo is a fantastic car, but you imagine it as a cabriolet, be pretty damn good, wouldn't it? You get the little holes in the sides, the little Turbo S options, get the sports exhaust on the back, do a funky colour. I'll be a king car, wouldn't it? So I
think a few of them have been made, though, haven't they? They've been butchered post-launch.
Yeah, I think it would look odd.
No, it wouldn't look odd. That's because it just doesn't exist. If it exists, Porsche don't fuck things up like that. If they'd done it, it would look great.
Not like a Rover convertible.
Can I just say one thing, Neil Clifford? I've been looking for a sentence that summarises the essence of this podcast. And I think you've just got there by delivering with a straight face. I often wonder why they didn't make a 993 turbo cabriolet. I wonder how many other people have spent time wondering why Porsche didn't make a 993 turbo.
I think most of the people that listen to this podcast will have the same question.
I haven't.
And if they haven't, then
I'm glad they didn't
think harder about
it's a delicious observation, and I'm very pleased you made it.
But that isn't my choice. The car
you've done it as well.
The car that I really, and it goes back to Q cars of last week.
Yeah, this is big Q car territory.
Yeah, it is Q car territory. The modern, but the first gen Maserati Quattroporte manual touring.
Oh, yeah.
What a Q car that would be, because that's a beautiful car, super underrated. Why haven't we all got one? They're 10 grand on eBay. They're 15 grand for the good ones. Fantastic car. They bucked up the look of it when they started to mess around with the looks. The original Pininfarina one. But imagine that in a touring.
Yeah.
Manual, navy blue, Koyo, debadged, mega car.
No one would know what that was, would they? No one would know.
You know, I'm sure the bloody Sultan of Brunei's got 7 of them that he spent £9 million.
They get a really good look at the rear 3/4 of it as they drove past it, broke down on the M40. That you'd see you'd get a good look at the lines.
No, you're being cynical again. Let's be optimistic. It wouldn't break down because you'd have spent £47,000 at Dick Lovett having it serviced.
Oh dear.
Those are my 2, and I really, really wish they both existed.
There's something in that touring thing. We could do a whole podcast on tourings or sport wagons they didn't make.
Yes.
Bentley Continental GT, proper XJS, not the.
I'm going to challenge that. When you're sober in the morning, you tell me if you could do an hour and 10 minutes on that. I don't think
I could.
I could do it now.
Right, okay. Manish, do me a favour. Save us, please.
Well, you know, my dream thing is I wish all 3,000 Ferrari 456s were manual. It just got me out of so much trouble. But should I tell you the car that I wish had become a production car? I thought about this slightly more lateral take. It was, do you remember the Alfa Romeo Carabo? That beautiful green wedge with the little orange mouth. And I found it was a Paris Motor Show 1968. And what I didn't know, you know, consulting Auntie Google, was that it was called a Carabo because it's based on the Carabidae beetle, which is a luminescent green with lovely orange markings. So it's 980 millimeters tall. I mean, our grass was longer than that 2 weeks ago.
It's like a Pininfarina Modulo.
Oh, yeah. It's Bertone. It's Bertone.
It's a wedge.
It's a wedge. It's the ultimate wedge. But what I didn't also know, it's basically on the chassis of an Alfa 33 Stradale. It's a 2-litre engine, not but just small. You know what? I wish they built one of those because I'm
sure you could convert one, man. It's a nice cheap base car, the old 33 Stradale.
Yeah. Cheaper than your 456 re-upholstery.
I started with a $10 million car, and with the expense of £3,500 of various plastic molding, I have this. Yeah, you're right.
I think that's a fantastic. I'm having one of those moments where I think it's a great answer. I'm thinking, should I have looked at more concept cars that weren't made into reality? But I've always had a bit of a thing about concept cars. I love them, but I don't take them too seriously.
No, you can't. But this thing it's just so iconic, and of course. 3 years later, he builds a Countach, you know, and you could argue.
Yeah. So Monkey, you won't like it when Edward says the Ferrari pinning.
Well, he's going to, isn't he? I don't think he is. Edward, Hergé's Edward. What do you want to do today?
Right. I've got quite a few.
For God's sake.
But I've got quite a few. But hold on a sec. One of them, which I'll give you last, is the ultimate answer, which you're all going to agree to immediately. However, my first answer.
Stop before you start. Can you not put your hand up like that? Because it looks like one of those Bo Selector characters that's got massive arms.
Fine.
The perspective. Thank you.
So my first one is a sarcastic one. Is why couldn't Ferrari make a 50 grand 812 GTS? Because I'd buy one of those.
Yeah.
My second answer is the last generation 991 GT2 RS that they made into a 935. Why couldn't have they made the road car look like that? And they would have sold thousands
Millions,
and thousands
yeah.
of them
Cool.
because
Yeah,
it
that'd be
looks
nice.
bloody brilliant.
Yeah, it does.
The Bentley Flying Spur current model, I think, is a handsome looking car. That in a state form is that is a car for life. And as Chris just touched on the Porsche 904, obviously Porsche around their birthdays have been unveiling all of these cars they never made, these concept cars. They might as well make all of those because they could sell as many as they all look bloody brilliant. But the ultimate answer is a GT3 with rear seats.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Why didn't I think of that?
You can do it.
You can do it, but not legally.
Yeah, but you want it done properly. That's what you're saying.
yeah,
But it's not. You wouldn't. You'd never forgive yourself if you had an accident and you weren't paid out because you modified a car that's not meant for rear seats that had rear seats. So legally,
it's got the holes in the back. You can do it.
Do you think you can do that legally? Do you?
Well, there's a TUV approved one now that I think it's RPM do it.
Do they?
Yeah, they're doing a TUV approved kit that's coming from Germany for 991 certainly, and I presume they do it 992 as well. I think it's RPM that do it. Look them up on Google, but it's not cheap, but it is done properly.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea that someone that buys the GT3 doesn't want to use the unique facility that a 911 offers is a bit baffling to me. But it's all about the rear passenger strike on the bucket seat. They don't want to homologate the front seat to take the impact from the rear. So therefore, it would cost another couple £100 million to get the car sorted like that. So they leave it as a two-seater just because of the bucket seat, which is interesting. Well,
there's obviously a big session on concept cars to go on another podcast.
Yeah,
but I think you're right there. Right. I mean, Chris Cooper's covered most of them on his own, and
here to help.
Has left slim pickings for the rest of us. But I think there's one car that you've missed that I loved, and I don't know. I think Pininfarina designed it. It was a bit smelly, and it got shut down by our friends at the Scuderia, and that was about 12 years ago. Someone decided to reimagine a modern Stratos.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was based on a 430 Scuderia.
Yeah.
And I reckon one of those with a manual gearbox, that's just an amazing looking vehicle. I've always been a bit curiously obsessed with Stratoses, and I think a modern interpretation of a Stratos with a manual gearbox based on a 430 Scud, I'm kind of into that. That would be sensational.
That would be. That's cool. That's cool.
How funny, Chris, because at about the same time, maybe a tiny bit later, there were all these sort of CGI sort of mock-ups of cars reimagined, and somebody did a Mura, and I thought it was the ugliest piece of shit, the reimagining. Just all the subtlety was wrong. It was just the blob version, But Stratos was very, very pretty, wasn't it?
Oh, it's gorgeous. And this
Bertone wedge.
Google this reimagining version of it. It's really good. But it's interesting that certainly as a journo, you do often get invited into the kind of the weird, ghoulish skunkworks areas of car companies, and some of the stuff they show you that they never made. The E34 5 Series convertible is one of the most bizarre cars I've ever seen. They made a 3-door 5 Series M5 convertible, which is under they've got a museum under the factory in Garching, and they've got some incredible weirdo stuff under there. It's all like a bunch of cyborgs. Things like they made a 750i for Herr Richter, who was the then boss, with a E39 M5 engine in it with a load more power. They've got all the Karl Lagerfeld crazy stuff they made under there. They've got the E46 M3 pickup. They've just got some mega stuff. And I think that's back in the day when car companies weren't hurried and rushed, they used to let their engineers were allowed to go and make weird and wonderful stuff just to keep themselves amused. And I think that's where a load of the creativity of these car companies came. The Countach wouldn't have existed but for that thing that manager just pointed out. And that probably happened because someone said, go on, spend a month doing that. Whereas these days, they have to spend all their time calibrating hybrid systems.
Yeah. And I think that creativity thing is really interesting. And it's not for now, but we could probably come back to it some other time, is the creativity or lack of it in the resto mod idea. Everyone would have seen this week, the Singer 9345. which I'm really torn on. I like the orange color. But is that the right direction, or is it lacking creativity, or is it creative the wrong way? So perhaps we'll come back to that. But I think that sort of the creativity of what you talked about, I think is really interesting in terms of stuff that we can all imagine that wasn't built. There's a big cue card, Neil, as you and I have said, there's a big cue card to mention in there, and lots of my ideas. I've got dozens more if we're bored. We're a bit cue car-ish.
95% of the stuff that we write, when we do any film or TV, I mean, literally 95% of what we write, the first assembly of whatever we put together sits on the floor. It's all about having a go and seeing what works. And you only ever learn from what doesn't work, or what kind of almost works.
How many shoes and handbags that I look at on a daily basis?
Yeah.
They don't all come to fruition.
No.
But how often do you look back and think that one would have sold really well? Why didn't we make it?
We never have the time to look back, really.
No.
It might come back in a year's time when we say, go through those bins over there. I'm sure that loafer with the logo on the back, I'm sure we did that. So we do hunt and rummage through things we've done before.
Is it true that you're working on an experimental Edward Lovett loafer that's got a very silent soul because he likes creeping up on behind people?
I couldn't discuss it. It's in it's Skunk Works.
I think that's a yes.
Now then, let's go.
We're going to call it the Clive.
A very, very
I love it. Right. Marmite cars. For those of us that are not listening in the UK, we have a yeast extract-based spread called Marmite that divides opinion in this country. You either love it or you don't. I happen to absolutely adore it, especially the chili one. If you can get hold of that, the limited edition chili one, it is absolutely bonza.
Oh, I'm not aware of that.
No,
you probably buy it on eBay, Edward. It's quite expensive. I'm
a Bovril man myself.
Oh my God, get thee to a nunnery. Right. So I reckon that Marmite's a great description of stuff that it just polarizes. We're talking black or white. So this is the first in an occasional series of Marmite cars. We might segue into Marmite people at some point, but let's start uncontroversially with Marmite cars. And our first victim for the day is, drum roll please, the Land Rover Defender. A couple of us here are strong advocates of the car. A couple of us aren't. Let's start with Neil Clifford.
Well, it's like driving around in a Union Jack. You've got to love the Defender.
Yeah.
I don't think you can love our country and dislike the Defender. I mean,
and you mean the original Defender?
Yeah, I mean we can discuss the new one. I think it's pretty good, particularly in short wheelbase form. I think it's decent looking. But I think we're talking about the original Defender. We're talking about 1951 or whatever, 48 all the way through to whatever 2017, aren't we, or something? So it lasted a long time. I think that. I was thinking about this because I knew Chris was going to come with a pretty forceful argument of disliking the Defender and saying how shit it is. But that isn't the point. It's clearly quite a shit car. That's not the point. The point is it's full of character. So are you gonna fall in love with a perfect person, or are you going to fall in love with someone with character? And I think it is brimming with character. One of the most characterful cars. I'm sure we will discuss the 2CV at this point, at some point in the future, Mr. Harris, I'm sure. But I think for me, I compare it to the top trumps discussion we had about fast cars. It doesn't matter that if you buy a car that's does 200 miles an hour and it doesn't do it. The fact that the Defender is, it's a survival car. It's a Mad Max car. For me, it's a Rambo car. I want to feel when I'm driving along that if there's a tornado on the A41 or a flood, I'm going to survive. So I think it is quite, maybe it's a male thing, this, but I think the fact that it will survive anything. You could drive up Mount Everest, you could drive through the Thames if you had to. I think it's all about what the car could do if it had to, as opposed to what you actually do in it. So that's my angle on the Defender. And you feel very protected when you're driving this thing. It's also lovely sometimes just to drive slow.
Yeah.
Right? We don't all want to be driving on the speed limit, particularly when maybe some of us are at 3 points or 6 points or 9 points, and maybe that's a discussion for some point in the future. It's just lovely to potter along at 40 in a 60 and don't care that people are overtaking you. That is the Defender.
Okay, I think that's a considered defense of the Land Rover Defender. Manish, where do you sit? On which side of the fence do you fall?
Oh, I fall very much on Neil's side of the fence. I think a good friend of mine used to say that one thing about flying British Airways and its pomp was no matter where you went and did business around the world, once you walked into the cabin and you sat down, you were home. And I love that description. I think a Defender is exactly that. You see them around the world and they are just one thing. They're home, aren't they? It's just home. It's home abroad. My in-laws, when they bought this beautiful sort of farm, it was a plantation house in Tobago in the early 70s. The thing they bought with it, there was no telephones in Tobago at the time. You used to have to telex people to let them know you were coming. There was no actual, the house didn't even have a working fridge at the time, but what it did have was a beautiful white Defender. It still works. So the thing is 48 years old. It's beautiful. It goes up hills, it comes down hills. It never needs to go very, very quickly. And my abiding memory actually of my father-in-law, whom I lost very, very recently, is him sitting on the back with the tail down in his sort of cowboy hat in the sun as this thing's reversing down an almost one-in-one hill, driven by this fantastic local carpenter with his legs hanging off, and me going, don't fall off, don't fall off. And thinking, you know what? That is a car.
Yeah.
And it is a car. It's just a little bit of us everywhere.
You can't, it's interesting. You almost can't treat it as a car. I suggested this topic because in part because I'm Monkey, I know you're not a big fan. And Clarkson quite famously recently in some other part of the internet said he hates this idea of a Defender. You can't treat it as a car. It's sort of a piece of agricultural equipment. If you treat it as a piece of agricultural equipment, it's surprisingly satisfying.
Why drive it on the fucking road then?
Because it's wonderful. Because it's got huge character. It's actually an awful lot of car in the space. I mean, you're putting aside the turning circle, which is super tanker-esque. My one is 99 TD5, first the TD5s. So it's got 12 seat belts inside. It's got the sort of the inward-facing rear seats. 12 people you can put in it. Quite a small footprint, much smaller than anything else. And it's just got huge character. Everybody loves it. I mean, people will laugh at this, but I came down here in it last week. Cameron and I came down in it. And we were waving at people who had other Land Rovers. Some people don't wave. The modern Defenders, they don't understand it. But you would sort of, little sort of, finger raised, just raise one finger off the steering wheel. It's not flash. It's not ostentatious. I'm sort of.
Hello, fellow xenophobe. How are you?
It's not xenophobe. It's classless. It's classless.
Yeah.
It's classless. It's status.
And Chris, I think they look wonderful.
And they look wonderful.
The aesthetics of a Defender. It's just
it's not logical.
The aesthetics are entirely subjective. So I mean,
it's not logical. But it's got, Neil is right, it's huge
hang out with beautiful actors. And it's got, I know what beautiful is.
Yeah, everybody who...
So Manish, you are the arbiter of what beautiful is?
Yeah, well, yes. Why not?
Okay, well, there we go. That's decided that then. Sorry, Chris, carry on.
No, it's everybody, it creates goodwill. It's not fast. It's one of the few cars today that if you try and hustle it, it really doesn't like it. You can't hustle it. But there is a speed.
You need to get an LS1 in yours.
Yeah, see, I don't get that at all. I don't get that at all.
I don't either.
That's just like, that'd be like exhuming the Queen Mother. It'd just be, no. No, it just wouldn't do it.
The
You know,
worst
everyone would
one I
love to see her
ever
again, but no.
Well, Edward, this has been unremittingly positive. Please don't tell me that you're a part of the pro Defender campaign.
Well, I am.
Oh,
Yes. Well done, Ed.
And let me tell you a little story. So obviously, I have a family that sells new cars for a living.
do you?
And
Never said that.
And up until about 6 years ago, that family never sold Jaguar Land Rover. So obviously, you can't have a Land Rover in a family or anything from any other brand. So when my mother said at a dinner table about 15 years ago, quite nice to have something different. I fancy a VW Beetle.
Your mother is Michael
Your mother was
Palin.
Babs Windsor.
Anyway, we bought, and I'm trying to think how long ago it was. It's about 12 years ago. So before we were a Land Rover dealer, off a family friend, we bought a 2003 green Defender 110.
GD5.
And in that era, obviously the rear seats, there were 4 rear seats facing each other, which is really important because you could from 2004 onwards, you couldn't have that. It was just 2 seats in the back. And, you know, the car's got rust bubbles everywhere now. But, you know, we've had it chipped, so it goes a little bit faster. But
as opposed to if you lose it, you can get it back.
No, but it's the car that's taken our dogs down to Cornwall. It's the car that I've gone shooting in. It's the car that we've taken out to the paddocks on bonfire night with the drinks, and the kids can sit in the back and watch the fireworks. It's the car that's taken the kids down to the beach in Cornwall.
So it's the ideal 13th car.
Something like that.
No.
Something like that. But but also out of the cars that my family are fortunate enough to have had or have, it's the car that anyone can get in, anyone can use and abuse. No one cares if it's clean or dirty or whatever. And it's probably the last car my mother would now ever sell.
Yeah, I love your mum. I love your mum.
Yeah, and I now share that affection for that particular car.
Brilliant.
So,
Brilliant.
Chris, you miserable bastard, you can finish us off.
Come on.
Okay, so I think I really believe in that in icons, and I believe that we should be patriotic. And I totally acknowledge the fact that the silhouette of the Defender, or the Land Rover as it was always known, is something that this country should have been proud of. It just lived too long, that's all. And I also think that because of that moral responsibility within a country that is at the moment struggling with identity and with knowing what it's going to be, its place is going to be in the world in the next half century, we do cling on to these icons probably a bit too closely.
Is there any country that doesn't do that, Chris? I mean, you know, it's always supposed to.
I'm not saying there wasn't another country doing it. I'm making the observation that we are doing that. I'm not saying exclusive to us. I didn't say that. I also think that it's interesting hearing people talk about it. I think there's a series of phrases that people feel obliged to say about the Defender, which don't always stand up to scrutiny. So I've written down some of the things you guys have said about the car. So you can't love our country without loving the Defender.
Nobody actually said that.
Neil Clifford.
I did.
I love our country, but I don't love the Defender. I'm someone that's definitely been the victim of this and the beneficiary of this. We sometimes offset too much badness through the word character. A lot of people say I've got character, but I'm not very nice. And I think the Defender.
Yeah, but you are. That's the whole point.
And I think the Defender.
You love doing the curmudgeon thing.
The Defender, sadly, isn't very good to drive. My big problem is this. I agree with Neil when he says I like driving slowly, but I like to drive slowly in something that's actually enjoyable to drive. The Defender is an instrument of torture.
No.
I am a very, very small. I let you talk, Cooper. I'm a very, very small man, all right? And I just don't fit in the bloody things. My right elbow smashing against there. It's got the turning circle of a Channel ferry.
Yep.
It's just unpleasant. Anyhow, to show you how committed I was to trying to prove myself that I was wrong, in 2008 or 9, I ordered and bought a brand new 110 Defender. And I had this romantic idea, like you guys, that it was going to be a part of the family. It's going to be like a Labrador that lived with us all its life, and my kids were going to learn to drive in it. And after 6 months, we just fucking hated it. It was just a bad car that you couldn't turn around in the school car park. It was really slow and smelly. It was just not fit for purpose, really. And I also think I have to be very careful about this notion of the Defender engendering goodwill. I think particular types of Defender engender goodwill. So I reckon the ones that lurk around farms and that you see abroad, man, it's just quite right. When I see a Defender abroad, I always, there's a bit of me that goes, oh God, like that. That's a bit of Britain. I'm very proud of that. But I'm not sure the blacked out ones that
no, definitely not. I'm totally with you on that.
And actually, there's an awful lot of those now.
Yeah, I don't. And actually, when Neil was talking, I thought I'd almost exclude anything that was right at the end of line, and all of that. We all know who they are. Those aftermarket people who are improving them. Then that's not what we're talking about.
I think there's a sense that in some ways the Defenders, and I use this phrase carefully because Chris Cooper invented it. The Defenders' core competencies have been misappropriated by a load of people. You know, what it's brilliant at doing, it never does.
No.
And I think that's a bit disappointing. Even a 911 that's driven by someone that can't drive occasionally gets the chance to do what it can do. But a Defender that just drives around town with blacked out windows and massive wheels and what have you, I just don't get it. And I don't enjoy driving them. And there's lots of other cars that are really slow that I really enjoy driving. But I just don't enjoy driving Defenders. I'd far rather have something else. But one thing I do love is I love trying to understand why other people love stuff that I can't get. And I see all of you waving at each other and I think, I don't get this. There's a joke going on here that I don't understand. But it's amazing to hear you speak with such passion.
Well, I will back you up on the driving thing if you're doing it for any long period. Obviously, Chris has just driven down to Cornwall from London, which is total fucking madness. He should have driven something else.
Yeah,
but when you drive back to Calais to get on the Channel Tunnel and you see people heading towards Reims in a Defender, and it's normally 4 or 6 up, some young kids, and you know they're off to the Alps, and you think they're going to fucking regret that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I do that.
Yeah. Especially if you're in a 90 in the back seats.
It's interesting. I mean, Chris, I totally agree with everything you've said. And yet, and yet, and that's why it's the Marmite thing. That's why it's just such an interesting question, because I still feel a love for it. And it's like, Edward, your mum, I think we'd never sell it. It's got a very, very narrow window. On a motorway, it's dreadful because it's so noisy and it's so drafty and there's nothing you do to stop it being noisy. 55 miles an hour on a good A road is sort of okay. But there is a perverse pleasure and satisfaction to be had from making it sort of flow. Any car, we may talk about this one day. Why do we love driving? What is it about the act of driving we love? And how does that manifest in different kinds of vehicles? Whether it's a tractor or a Porsche 911 or a Land Rover. And with a Defender, there's a narrow little bit where you can make it sort of flow, and there's immense pleasure to be had from that.
Well, this is the beauty of opinion, isn't it? There's the beauty of Marmite. That's it.
Yeah. And actually, I'm completely in the minority. Look at the number of people that love these things, and also look at the prices of them. I mean, if you've got some old rust bucket, they're like 30,000, £40,000 now, aren't they?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, it's interesting. Up a lot. It's interesting, and I think this is an interesting. Maybe it's a social commentary, but there's a split between. So the one I've got, which is 24 years old this year, hasn't really gone up much in value since I bought it in 2011. Whereas some of the last line ones now, you see them. I'm seeing them collecting cars. They go for extraordinary amounts of money. The heritage models.
Good value.
I've got a heritage from '99, and that hasn't budged really very much at all.
You can get good value on collecting cars. You're right, Chris.
All right, Edward.
No. Neil bought one.
I did.
Yeah, I wish I had the one that he bought. That you bought. It's lovely.
I bought 2 on collecting cars, and there's a really funny story that cannot be told on this podcast to one of them.
I think they are, they're a remarkable vehicle. And I remember many years ago being asked to define how many genuinely iconic vehicles are there on the planet. And there really aren't many when you try and whittle it down. No. And there's no doubt that vehicle earns its place on that list. And that has to be acknowledged. It really does. But when other cars
were designed on an Etch-a-Sketch.
I know. It's bonkers. Well, okay, I think we've marmited out.
Good debate.
I've been completely outnumbered there, and I've had to get on the front foot to batter you lot down because you're fucking doing me over. Right, here we go. Now, this is something that came to mind to me, actually, in the last couple of days. Modes of communication between drivers that are hand gestures, thank yous, goodbyes, trying to be polite, are and always have been baffling to me. So I want my dear friends and panel here to help me try and work my way through the sludge and the slime of and just the general confusion I have around how are you supposed to say thank you to people? Should you keep saying thank you 4 or 5 times afterwards? And when do the thank yous end? Should you just not say thank you to people? What are your most frustrating moments on the road? What are the areas that you think you don't understand, or that you feel you're the only person that gets it and everyone else is wrong? How does it work? Ed would love it.
I'm not sure when the first sort of signal was acknowledged that like this matching vehicles did it, but there was something, and I'm sure they did it on Curb the Enthusiasm in America when they had the Prius nod, and Larry David was walking around doing the Prius nod. But I didn't get into motorbikes till quite late, and a motorbike is a thing that you know pretty much everyone does the little motorbike nod, and that's quite amusing. Even people going super fast still have chance to get a quick nod in. I am someone that identifies goodwill on the road, and I had written a note down here that I almost became the guy that does the opposite. But when I was driving home last night in central London, which is not made for all these 4x4s, but in rush hour, it's quite a faff getting through the back lanes in London when some people want to give you space, some people want to duck in. But there was this young girl coming towards me last night, and I knew she wasn't going to give up, and she was coming for a gap that wasn't there. And she had her window down, and I put my window down about her. I'm not sure what I was going to say, but it wasn't going to be that pleasant. And then I thought, it says collecting cars on the side of my Land Rover Defender. I'm not going to say a word.
That's a dash cam in her windscreen.
Yes. So if you might be thinking of throwing some verbal abuse out the window, do not do it if you have your company on the side of it.
Yeah.
But no, Edward, if you were in that, so no, just, you know, the Q car that Chris described last week, if you were in this sort of souped up dark grey Vauxhall, what would you have done? That's what I want to know.
Don't answer that, Edward. He's thrown a banana skin under your feet, Edward.
I'd have got my rubber hand.
Don't answer it. Neil Clifford, you are obviously a really kind man, and you want to see the good in all people. How does that translate into your road driving?
I think the only anger I ever get, almost in life, is the no response thank you.
Yes.
You can literally go from super happy, the way home, you know, the wife's cooked something lovely, it's sunny,
hello sky, hello trees,
all is right for the world, and then you get a no thank you, you get a no response when you've pulled over. You can go instantly to 10 of furious, and a lot of the words I can't even, you know, we say fuck a lot on this podcast, but
you do.
It goes beyond fuck. Sometimes when you want to abuse someone in your own little world, when you don't get the thank you. And my wife is even worse. I asked her this question. She was, the no thank you. The no thank you is so terrible. Just not getting that recognition. So I think it's very important for us all to make sure we do the thank you.
It's a small courtesy.
It's really, really important. I'm sure there's been hideous amount of road rage by not just doing the thank you when you should be doing it. I do like the little Volkswagen Beetle, Defender, Porsche, mainly air-cooled. I don't think the water-cooled guys have really got into it.
Yeah.
We do get the acknowledgement. You know, we need to bring the water-cooled guys into the gap.
Lost
you know,
cause.
if you're in a 30 turbo or a 3.2 or an early short wheelbase or whatever, you do, it's pretty regular. Mini, you get it, don't you? So I think the little individual gangs, I think that's quite cool.
What do you think 250 GTOs passing each other? What would they do to each other?
They both say, "I wish I had a 275." It might be. I might think. I might think I'm cooler because it costs 4 times the price for 275, but it's not as pretty.
Yeah.
The other thing I saw last week, which I loved because it's a sort of anti-establishment, rebellious, sort of almost communist Italian way of life, is the flashing your lights when there's a policeman doing the speed camera.
Yeah,
and
we like that. We like that.
That in Italy is all over the show because there was quite a lot of guys, policemen with their little guns on all the bridges, even in Sicily. But you know what? You get warned 15 miles up the road.
Yeah.
Because no one, in Italy paying tax, you're a bit stupid, aren't you? So the last thing you want to do is actually pay a fine to the police about speeding. So I thought that was really brilliant that you get total acknowledgement. Clearly, we've got the bloody fixed cameras here, so it's a bit more tricky. But I think that is a good nod. More flashing and warning about policemen, I think, is a good thing.
On that.
It does happen in the UK, doesn't it? I get warned a lot in Wales.
I don't see the mobile guys much, apart from that run down from Buckingham Palace down to Park Lane. You get that guy right at the end in the middle.
You do still see it. And it's many people watching this may know this. One of the original purposes of the motoring organizations, the RAC and the AA, they used to salute members.
Yes.
See the badge and salute them. But if the patrol, probably was a patrolman in those days, did not salute the member, this was the code to say there's a police person up the road about to nab you for over speeding. Yeah, hidden. And but of course, actually, technically, and I know we all observe this, technically warning another road user of a police person man up the road with a speed camera is technically perverting the course of justice.
It is illegal.
Somebody, one of those people on social media, the black belt barrister, I quite like him. He's very, very down to earth guy. So the black belt barrister, if you're watching this, and if you are, thank you. Talk about it in the comments and give us some sort of feedback. But I think, so we all view that one with great sort of circumspection. But I think you're right, Neil. It's the no, thank you. My wife and my office manager related, they're sisters. And when either of them give me a lift to the station, we live, Monkey, you've been to it, and Neil, you have, you very kindly gave me a lift home from one of our events. And we live at the end of a very long single track road in countryside, not far from where Neil is. And there's a few passing places, so you have to give and take. And both my wife and her sister, who works with me, are 0 to 100 in 0 seconds. If when they've pulled in, if we always pull in or reverse to the parking space, and somebody comes up the road and they don't give the thank you, it's instant.
I think the female rage is much higher than the male rage on the no.
Oh God, he said it.
It's not just in the cars, Neil.
No,
but the thing, actually, on the language though, just getting us out of this little hole I've dug for us. On the language thing, I have this concept called fast friend. So it's that we've all had it where you're making progress somewhere on a long journey. A303 is a good one, where you've got a bit of dual carriageway, a bit of single carriageway, sometimes not great lane discipline, but you sort of either catch up with somebody or somebody catch up with you. And you can just tell from their body language on the road that they want to make progress, but they want to cooperate. They don't want to race you. They want to cooperate. And we love that because it's positive, it's helpful, it's optimistic. And there's that sort of, almost it's like the sort of, if they let you out, you just give one ping on the hazard flashes to say, thank you. Or one ping. And when you peel off, because at some point in the journey, one of you is going to peel off, you go to the left or right on the M25.
And you give a little...
That bit you think, I have no idea who you are. I've only just met you. I'll never see you again. But there's something about enjoying the journey and making progress and sharing the making of progress with another road user.
Little flash. I had it. Goodbye, right? You'd say do the goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Yeah, goodbye.
Totally. I love it. I love it. So I think that's I don't know whether that's a peculiarly British thing. Be interesting to hear from people.
It's not. The number of times I've driven down through south of France and in Italy as well, you'll get lovely little subtle, just one nod on the hazards when you've got
exactly. Just one ping.
500 miles or something.
Yeah, I love that.
Nice that.
I think I only had a moment of wondering whether I was getting this completely wrong, because like you, my trigger is the no thank you. I can't. I would carry a chainsaw just for those incidents.
Yeah.
But it dawned on me that I've traveled a lot around this weird globe that we live in, and actually the rules of the road change wherever you go. And you can go to remarkably busy cities that function very well and politely, and they don't acknowledge each other because there's so much chaos going on that actually, if you said thank you or acknowledged every little gesture, you probably would
confuse them
on the wheel. Because you'd imagine being in Rome and saying thank you to everyone, or you wouldn't be able to function. But so it is possible to be courteous to your other road users without saying thank you the whole time. Maybe it's a body language. Maybe if someone didn't say thank you to me, but I could see they were smiling, maybe that would offset it.
Yes.
But with blacked out windows, so rarely you can't see the fizzog of your adversary until they're almost right next to you, at which point they've not said thank you and you want to go.
But a nod is a thank you. You can just nod.
It is.
But do you think there's car language though also that says thank you though, Chris?
Yeah, I think I agree
about somewhere like Rome.
Yeah.
Not even with the flashing light. You just know someone's just backed off very slightly, so you come into that roundabout. That's a kind of lovely thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can, like Nigel Mansell, you can present your car in a certain way that makes it. It's about being passive, isn't it? I think if you present your car in a passive way to other people, especially if you've got a big motor car and you're a man, it's quite a nice thing to do rather than to bully people. But I do find it quite baffling. And sometimes one of the games I play with myself is if let's say I'm making a bit of time down the outside lane of the motorway, or lane 3 as we're supposed to call it, and I cannot understand why someone is either sitting in the middle lane or they're just sitting in the outside lane on an empty motorway. Once they've got out the way, and I won't be flashing them or anything, once they've gone, I'll sometimes just drive by the side of them and just look across for a while.
Yes, I do that.
You can sit there for 10 minutes and they will not even be aware that you're there.
Yeah.
That reminds you that a lot of people are using 110% of their processing power just to stop that vehicle crashing. And they don't have anything left over for courtesy or they're just
anything.
They are just shitting themselves that they have to drive.
And then
you have to remind yourself of that.
No, I'm not saying I've said this in a text and I'll say it again. I think we are definitely quintuplets separated at birth, because I just share all of this, the fury of it, the idea that someone sits in front of you, they get out of their way, you're furious, then you realize they're literally holding onto their steering wheel for dear life. They don't have a clue that you're there. But my little flip on this is, can you imagine people with shopping trolleys in a supermarket behaving as they do when they've got cars? I mean, can you just imagine you're just heading towards aisle 13 and someone just cuts you the fuck up, heading for the Omo? You're just like, what? Why? Or you just back off at the end of an aisle,
sure
so that someone can come past, and they just sort of go.
The brand manager of Omo is wrapping themselves right now.
I want to see. Can we fill you full of rosé and send you off to a large Waitrose and just watch what happens?
There's a co-op in St. Maud's.
You come out security in shackles because you've accosted someone by the Moo chocolate fucking sponges.
You're heading towards a checkout and someone cuts you up. Or you see someone with just one item in their bag and suddenly you pull up. So you let them through, let them through, and they give you the
I think supermarket etiquette is another conversation, probably.
Some of it's quite similar. Some of it's
Yeah.
quite similar.
That's
But
what I think. I think there's lots that happens in supermarkets that
Yeah.
happens on motorways. And the fact is you're not enclosed in your 2-ton aluminium and leather thing. And it allows you not to get away with it. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if people behaved in
Yes.
supermarkets as they do on roads, I think there may be many a fist fight, leg of gammon straight over your head,
But there's something, I think there's something discerning about the people who would watch this podcast, who are thinking about, because I've just thought about what we've been saying a moment ago, Monkey. If we take ourselves from out of a British road scenario, so when I was in Zandvoort in the Netherlands about a month ago, and for the first 2-3 years I was there, I was commuting across the south of Amsterdam to the west where Zandvoort is, right out on the coast. About an hour, and there's a massive number of motorways and junctions there. And first day, I was really struck by, crikey, they bloody make progress. And if there's a gap, they use it. They don't make a fuss about it. They don't screech into it. They don't flash lights. They don't try that last minute, oh, shall I, shan't I? They just move into it. There's no road rage. Everybody's in on the deal. And what I'd like to think is that the people, ourselves and the people who watch this podcast, all of whom are very discerning judges of what works where. We found ourselves instantly, we picked up the rules. So we didn't get irritated, if somebody calls, hey, I left literally 10 centimeters too much, and somebody took it and said, hey, you left space, I'm going to take it. Cool, it was fine. So I think it's interesting how the rules do differ, but you've just got to go with them, learn them and go with them, and it all works. That was great.
That's a good point. And maybe part of my frustration is I feel that because this is a very international country, there's a lot of people that come here having learned to drive in other countries, and they logically continue driving according to their rules and their customs, and they're not quite the same as ours.
I think that's true, particularly on undertaking, which is my other. I know we discussed it before. I just can't abide undertaking.
Hate it.
It's against the law.
Rudest.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it.
You wait. You don't undertake. But I think there's a ton of it goes on now, right?
I would never do that. No.
I was going to say, hope you didn't come to Nürburgring with me and Mr. Cooper.
Yeah.
Right, moving on. So we are now going to share with you, and I really don't know where this is going to go, and I wonder whether at least one of us has never done this before. Hitchhiking. Share a story about hitchhiking, preferably one that's not too dark. Chris Cooper.
Well, how many of us have actually hitchhiked?
Mummy said never get in a car with someone else.
Could be a nice short feature.
I've got two short stories. So in the late 80s when I was a student, people hitchhiked because that's how you got about. I had a car, but it was a bit of a shitbox and never worked. And somebody then stole the wheels. I had a 1967 Mini Cooper with mini light wheels, which are worth twice the rest of the car. And some bastard nicked the wheels. So I spent most of my final year hitchhiking. And my then sort of girlfriend was at university in Aberystwyth. Felicity, or Facility, as my friends called her, which I didn't find very funny or endearing at the time. Now I think it's fucking hilarious. So I used to hitchhike between Portsmouth and Aberystwyth. And I thought it was fantastic. It was a real adventure. It was really, because you had no understanding. You had to be quite ballsy because you had to basically stand at the side of the road. It was in Portsmouth, Neil. I mean, you might have driven past me and not given me a lift. Who knows?
I'm probably right. If it was a yellow Mark 1 Escort.
Didn't see that. No, you would have stopped for me. So you have to go to the top of the Eastern Road in Portsmouth, just on the A27M. I think A27M there rather than M27, isn't it?
Yeah, near Havant.
Near Havant, yeah, that side of the island. And basically stick your thumb out and just wait and see what happened. And there are two stories kind of doing, both coming back from Wales the other way. So I had one that coming back first, because you'll take 15, 20 hitches to get the distance there. It took a long time because people were going like 5 miles or 10 miles, and you take what you get. Two of those stick in my memory. One was coming back from Wales. There was a guy who's he was a colleague of, this shows my age, he was a colleague, a former British Leyland worker, a colleague of the guy who became known as Red Robbo.
Oh, really?
Red Robbo. So Red Robbo was the union leader, convener in Longbridge.
He made Ken Livingstone look like Margaret Thatcher, didn't he?
He was the bête noir of Michael Edwards, which also shows my age, who was a South African guy brought in by Maggie.
Massive ears.
To sort out British Leyland, as then was. So he picked me up, and I don't know how he got, because part of the deal of hitchhiking was you kind of got to sing for your supper. You can't just sit there and say nothing. So you say, thanks very much. So talk about the car for a bit and said, okay, well, where have you been and where are you going? And what do you do for a living? I was a student. And this guy told me he's a car worker. And he said, are you one of those student types? I said, well, I am actually. He said, and he launched into something about student fees and all this kind of thing, because there was a debate about whether they should or shouldn't be. I was a student, we had fees paid for. And just get quickly on to the British Leyland strikes, because he was driving a Peugeot and he was very embarrassed by driving a Peugeot. And got into strikes. And he got really, really animated. And I sort of said, well, what about seeing this view and, competition from Europe and Japan and so forth? And he only chucked me out. I mean, he stopped. He stopped. He didn't just open the car and eject me on the M4 going past Newport. But it was very interesting. And I thought, you never get that totally random, forced together relationship and debate. In that same journey, I was on the outskirts of Newbury before they built the whole of the
34.
Yeah, so outskirts of Newbury, and trying to get towards Winchester, and then before all the M3 was built. And somebody in a 928, it must have been an S2, pulled up. It was a doctor.
We've had this one before,
and I just thought that was amazing. I went from Red Robbo's best mate. In between, there was some bloke who literally didn't want to stop and let me out, and I was feeling scared.
Yes, when you use that lovely phrase, "sing for your supper," how far did that go, Chris?
It saved me the petrol money. Leave it as that.
Oh God!
Did you used to wear trousers with knee pads?
Thankfully not.
I
must have looked two home counties. Not interested in that kind of stuff.
Home counties, okay.
But I do. Okay, so we'll get through my experiences very quickly. I've lived a very privileged, sheltered life. I'd never done any hitching at all until I ended up some school in Africa, and I didn't have a car or any money. And I was 70 miles from anywhere. So to get into town on a weekend to go and have a beer or meet someone that was vaguely my age, I used to just stand on the highway and hitch into this town. And I got really used to it, because in that part of Africa, it was all buckies. So what you do is you didn't have to have the conversation. You could lie in the flatbed out the back with, I used to have a duffel bag with my overnight stuff. And you could just lie in the flatbed and just look at the African sky. It was lovely. Yeah. And I did this week.
Biggest sky in the world.
It became so peaceful. It was basically a straight road for 60 miles, quite well paved. And I got so accustomed to it until one day I remember thinking, that hurts and I don't feel very well. And I looked around and realized I was still in the back of the bucky, but we were no longer moving. And we'd hit something called a kudu. If you look at what a kudu is, I thought like an antelope. It's basically a cow with horns. The thing is, these things are fucking huge. The kudu was still moving. It got up and sort of staggered off into the bush around the veldt, where I suppose it probably expired after that. But this bucky was absolutely Donald ducked. And the driver, who I'd barely spoken to, I now realised I was stuck by the side of the road with a large sort of Dutch farmery type, who I didn't really know what his provenance was, but he was probably sort of 73 on an M, and I didn't know what he was about. And I had no means of getting away from there, or no mobile telephone. I did suddenly, I had seen Deliverance, and I thought, crikey, this could end badly. Luckily, a bus stopped and scooped us both up. But I have to say that was the last time I hitched, because I got so used to doing it. It was so blissfully easy. And then when it went wrong, I did poop myself.
Have you ever picked anybody up, Chris?
Yeah, lots of times. I tell you why.
Without paying for it, Chris.
Oh, yes, here we go. Fanar. Although that's probably an obvious gag to ask me. I'll take that one on the chin. I tell you why I did. It's because several times I would see guys holding trade plates, delivery drivers. Because I used to, if you're a journalist and you've had lots of cars delivered to your house, if you can't give the guy a lift to the nearest station because you're working or you're aware of the fact they've got an awful day ahead of themselves. Their day's ruined. So if I can, I will always pick someone up with a trade plate. But if you notice, there's fewer and fewer people around now with
very few. Very, very few. I used to pick people up for the same reason. I thought it's kind of a favor you've got to pass down the line.
Yep.
And it's a bit like the small favors in the thank you.
I've never done it, actually.
Yeah, you got to pass it down the line. Although you see very few people hitching now. I remember once I was driving through Scotland with my with Facility. We're driving through Scotland on a camping holiday. And there were two, it was pissing down rain, somewhere in the Trossachs. For now.
You were with Facility in the Trossachs.
In the Trossachs. That's literally not made up. And there were two very, very bedraggled figures at the side of the road. Somewhere between, I could make up places now, but my friends, I'm Scottish, so I can't do this. That would think I'm taking the piss. But there were two very bedraggled figures in this hooning rain. And Felicity said, we ought to stop for them. And I said, I was really reluctant. So I pulled over and stopped. And these two figures pulled off their hoods. One looked like Anna de Armas, the other one looked like Margot Robbie. At which point Felicity wound her window up and I pushed open the back door.
Yeah.
And Felicity and I didn't last much longer after that.
Right. We're now moving on to this week's two-car garage, which I'm going to read out because it's on my telephone, because I've actually been organised this week. You have arrived at that time in life when your children still have a few years left at school. It's a school at which some parents drive very expensive, flashy cars. You don't have the budget to compete with this nonsense, nor do you want to. One evening, you sit down with your kids and you decide to change your current rather boring two-car garage for machines that will make you feel good in the school car park for all the right reasons. You've £45,000 to make other parents smile, but also to ensure the family can move around safely and quickly. This is two vehicles for £45,000. Chris Cooper's got all sorts of questions. He's going to query whether I've been clear enough. So he's going to go last. Neil Clifford, what's your answer?
I don't know whether I'm going to make them smile, but I think I'm going to make them hopefully think he's cool. So I've gone down the cool angle, not the smiling angle, because smiling angle is just an old Beetle with a flower on the dashboard. But I'm not really doing that. I want to do a bit of cool. And I think it's a brilliant bloody two-car garage, because we've all been in this situation with the McCanns are queuing up and those fucking godforsaken Volvos, hundreds of them. And you do want to stand out a little bit without looking a bit of a tit. And I've chosen two cars that I still have the eczema itch for. So I would still go and buy these cars today, and I still look at them on Collecting Cars, and other websites are available of cars for sale. The first one I would buy is an E36 M3 Evo Cabriolet.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's just the most undervalued, bloody cool car. And you'd go and get, because you got 45 grand here, and my second car is not so expensive-ish. So you'd get the best one, low mileage, I don't know, carbon black, saffron leather, factory hard top, 45,000 miles, full history, not been sort of knackered in slough. The leather all looks decent. It's been beautifully, perfectly looked after by the first or second owner. Original plates, original rear window sticker, original stereo. Brilliant. And what a car. For like, what, 20 grand maybe now? I know they were cheaper for maybe 25 grand for the best one. So I'd get that, because everyone needs, if you've got a two-car garage, you've always basically got to have a cabriolet. And then I'd be like, okay, what do I go for? I've had these before, but not this model. An early 928. I just think that 1976 car of the year, when they were all boring cars, and the Panda and the...
I'd be a nerd here. Wasn't it 77?
76 was the Rover SD1.
Is it 77?
I love this podcast.
I'd be impressed if you're right on that. I'm sure you are right. 77, 76. I mean, the one I really remember was Uno, which is 83, which was when I was on the YTS scheme. So I'm happy to bow to you on 77. But an S1 manual, of course, cloth, semi-cloth, whatever that. Pasha. That's what I'm looking for. You'd ideally want, I don't know, oak green with tan with Pasha. Pretty difficult to find unless it's left-hand drive, because they were all that in Germany. And you just, what an amazing, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when that car came out, sadly. What an amazing car. It still looks modern. One of the best dashboards, the fact that the whole binnacle moves, those big submarine quality nuclear B-52 knobs that are never, ever going to break. The sound of that central locking button, which is just like the Lloyd's insurance company.
Was it vacuum operated?
Oh,
Yeah.
I know the S2 was better because it was 4.7 and it was a bit gutless in a 4.5 and all that. But I think it's just the purity of the first car. And I don't know whether people would think that they would be happy, but they would hopefully think I was cool.
Your kids would be pissed off, though, because they're obviously, it's only 2 years till they finish school.
Oh, bollocks.
And unless they're about 3 foot, they were not going to fit in the back, are they?
They don't want to be with you anyway. It
was 1978, not 77 or 76.
Yeah, and it wasn't the Rover SD1 in 76 either. I've just looked it up.
I thought we've been really good nerds there. We've been bad nerds.
Shit.
Right, Manish, what's your two-car garage?
Oh, that is the coolest ever two-car garage to follow. So, this is a little bit. There is a bloke who drives to my son's school in a Pista quite often, and it's really irritating because it's very loud and it's very red, and it's just not a very nice car to follow at school. So I decided what I would do is be very slightly practical and then very, very slightly cool with the second choice. So my son's a cricket player. His mates are cricket players. We have a dog. So the first one has to be an estate. It has to be a cool estate. The kind of estate that you turn up and they go, is that new? What is that? And I think the BMW 320i Touring, the petrol one, 180 horsepower.
Yep.
From 2019, it's a beautiful looking car. You could get one of those in graphite with leather and all the bits and pieces. And I actually found one on a rival website. I had a look at Collecting Car. I couldn't see it, but it was £20,000, which I just could not believe. £20,000 was such a lot of car for that money. Yeah. And you will definitely get 2 or 3 cricket bags in the back. And my son's now 6'1.5", and his mates aren't that much smaller. And you will get 3 boys like that and 3 cricket bags in. So I think that's the daily. And then I did find a rather beautiful. I don't even know what the blue is. It's like almost like a teal greeny blue Audi S3 TFSI Quattro 2-door, 300 horsepower convertible. Absolutely stunning looking thing. 28,000 miles, £25,000, and that absolutely sheds the inner accountant in me, because all Indians are basically either accountants or doctors. So I think you turn up in one of those with a pair of glasses like Neil's, and you just look good. You just look good. We've gone
320i Touring S3. Pragmatic, but he's covered most bases there. Ed would love it. Why don't you undo all of his good work and give us your ludicrousness?
Fine. I've got 4. The reason I've got 4 is the first 2. I went into the Collecting Cars sold section, and I did take this seriously, Chris. And obviously, you want need some practicality. And as Neil said, I think with a 2-car garage, one of them, the roof's got to come off. So and obviously, I want to make the other parents smile in the car park. So the first one's a military Humvee.
H1.
An H1, yeah, but a military one, because they're dirt cheap, and I just think that that's cool. Very different to all the the flashy Volvos or whatever. And the other one is a gold metallic Cadillac Eldorado.
You've been on the sly all night.
If that doesn't make them smile and love me and my children, I don't know what will.
Eldorado is going to make them smile.
Oh, come on, that massive boat like that turning up at Eton.
Oh no, that would be super.
I have to say that is brilliant, Edward.
Yeah,
I think they're cool, and I'm going to give you the other two. But this smile is not really a smile; it's more of a laughing at you. So, but the first one's not. And this actually, we made a mistake last week with the Q cars. We missed one. We missed a really good one, which is the R63 AMG.
Oh,
that's kind of a cool, and we just sold one recently and for like 22 grand. So that's a cool car to have. But that's obviously not going to make the parents smile at you.
I'm going to spot it.
But obviously, on a sunny day when you drop the kids off at school in your Evoque convertible, that's going to make them laugh at you with a smile.
Have they stopped making it, haven't they? It didn't sell well. Weirdly.
I hope so.
No shit.
Yeah. I don't know, Mr. C. I could see you in an Evoque convertible wearing that shirt.
You must be fucking joking. I never swear on this, but
you know that thing about the basement at BMW with the cars that they never built. The Evoque should be in a sub-basement. It should be like a level lower, like a Dante's Seventh Inferno.
Yeah. Anyway, we have an Eldorado convertible.
We have a room 101 for the cars that we hate.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's have a room 101.
Okay. Now, at this moment, I should hand over to Chris Cooper, but I'm going to go next because we're going to leave him till last because he's got some serious questions to ask around the scenario I posed. So let's leave him just to sweat there for a minute, and he can simmer on his thoughts. I've gone very, very simple here. So I've always thought that if you're in amongst people with lots and lots of money that want to demonstrate how rich they are, you need to be the contrarian and go a bit further the other way. But that does sometimes cause difficulties because all the cool stuff is becoming expensive now. So you can't just find something for £1,000. But I reckon that if it was a car park full of fancy blacked out Range Rovers and the occasional Ferrari or Aston Martin, if you turned up in a Citroen Mahari, everyone's going to look at you and smile and think that you're probably quite a nice person, which in my case would be an absolute lie. But actually, I do believe there's something about the Mahari that's maybe even more joyous than a 2CV. So I'd have a Mahari with a bikini top, which is utterly pointless in the rain. But they're about 20 grand now, those things, which is basically it's a piece of preformed plastic with a 2CV engine in it. How there's so much money, I don't know. My other car, I thought about this because I might have been in one of these scenarios recently. And I think that in amongst all of those massive slabs of Midlands-based SUV and G-Wagons and everything else, there was someone turned up to school the other day in a Mark 7.5 Golf GTI with clear glass in dark blue, manual, with cloth seats. And it just looked spectacularly fine. It just looked reserved. It was this person wasn't trying to say anything about themselves, but they inadvertently told us that they were a legend. And I just thought it was great. And that's my car. I just think they are. The Golf GTI remains the vehicle you can park anywhere in any situation and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm afraid I'm rather boring like that. Now, Mr. Cooper, first of all, get it off your chest.
So you kind of half answered it actually in what you said, because I know this is yours, and I think we can all identify with a bit of this. I thought we all know, without naming the establishments, we can all think about those schools where big, blunt 4x4s are driven badly by one or other of the parents. And I kind of think, do you want to make them smile? They're not really one of us. And that's that contrary view. And I thought, I want to feel good about it, but I'm ambivalent about whether they're going to smile about it, because
that's fair.
Too many of them will they'd only smile if it was inferior, and it reinforces their superiority. And that's just, I don't do politics or anything social in any sort of way, but that's as close as I'll ever get to it. So I kind of thought, so I solved for, and I emphasized the bit about it makes you feel good in the school car park for all the right reasons. That's what's important here. Yep. And it's you feeling good and your kids feeling good, and your kids feeling, Dad, you've done the right thing for the right reasons for us. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And I think that's a really, really, I feel quite strongly about that. So, and you said, you sat down one evening with your kids, and so I actually finished away on holiday. So Cameron and I have discussed this the last 2 days, and we've been all around the houses, and we had one combination, which was a 2008 C63 wagon clear glass OBS, and a TVR Griffith, because you're right. Actually, I think it's a really interesting thing. I think, Edward, you said it earlier on. A 2-car garage, one of them's got to be an open top.
Yeah.
I don't know why. We all think that, but we all think that. I think that's really, really important. And then we went to a debumpered. So it would have to be a chrome bumpered, but debumpered MG midget with a super duper engine in it.
Oh, lovely. Lovely.
Which would make you feel good. Some people might get it, but hey, who cares?
Yeah.
And then we looked at other stuff that you would feel good about, 2018 BMW 540, 27K, huge amount of car for the money. But we ended up with 2 things. And I've always wanted one of these. I know we all love it. E39 M5.
Yeah.
Clear glass. E39 M5. About a really nice one, 35. I mean, Collecting Cars has had a really nice run on some of them, and I could have bid for any of those that are in the sold section. They all look lovely. 35, 40 grand. And what to have is a cool convertible that you'd feel good about. And if you've got more than one child, you kind of need a 2+2. So one of my colleagues now used to be a Jaguar Land Rover design engineer, engineering manager. And he worked on the XK8 project. And the XK8 convertible, remember that was it Jeff Lawson? He was the chief designer then before Ian Callum. And the XK8, when it originally arrived, had that the track looked ridiculous. The track was far too narrow for the body, and there's quite a lot of gap between the wheels and the arches. Bit too E-type-ish.
It's a bit E-typey though, in a good way, I think now.
Yeah, well, exactly. So we found a 97 normally aspirated 4-litre V8 for about 7.5 grand.
No.
Great car, that.
So
First
an
car-
M5
first
clear
car I ever
glass.
went in at Autocar magazine was one of those.
Say again?
First car I ever had a ride in with Sutcliffe was one of those at Autocar.
Yeah.
They're
The
really
J-gate?
nice cars.
J-gate transmission.
It's an XJ. It's a rebodied XJS with a J.
It's a rebodied XJS. Yeah.
It's a really good car.
Yeah. So
Like that.
M5 and so my conundrum on it was, who are you going to make happy? And it's got to be unique.
I think, as ever, I phrased it poorly. I think
No, you didn't at all. That's why it's interesting.
I think there's something. There's also a smugness about knowing that other people in those situations have spent an awful lot of money to stand out, and you might be able to turn up having spent what their carpets were worth in their cars, and everyone's
basically.
Don't you think there's a terrible irony in spending loads and loads of money to stand out and all turning up in black Range Rovers? I think there is a kind of terrible.
Yeah.
Bizarre, isn't it? The fact it's like a uniform. It's just a black suit.
It is.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on to some music because I need to go and get my son a pizza because I'm on day duty at the moment.
I'm cooking tuna.
Before we do that, I want to show you something that I bought on Amazon. I've always wanted to buy one of those little telephones that they smuggle into prisons, and I bought one. This is a telephone.
It's a burner phone.
Look at that. Look at the size of that.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put that?
Well, I need to go to prison now, and you need to send it to me, see if it works or not. Because I've got the phone, but I need to do this. I
was going to say that shouldn't be hard.
Chris, how will you get that into prison with a bottle of Vaseline?
What's the telephone? What's the telephone number on it? I'll call you now.
I'm going to give it to my uncle Manish so he can smuggle it in.
Can you text the number to us?
They're called burner phones.
Anyhow, sorry, music. Right.
That's brilliant.
Edward Lovett, are you
You
doing
get an action man with it.
Yeah.
My music for this week is Razor Lights, Up All Night.
Okay. Good night. Good, great tune. Great tune. Manish, come on, make us feel cultured.
Quite the opposite, actually. We have an intern in our office who's incredibly bright. He's 19 years old. He will be studying politics and history next year. And his superhero is Neil Clifford. And the reason why Neil Clifford is his superhero music is he's really started to discover as a 19-year-old all of that 90s music, Neil. And every week he just waxes lyrical about whatever you pick. And it's just got him over the last 4 months. He's just discovered
good man.
the music that we had when we were in our 20s, basically, in our mid-20s. So I wasn't a great aficionado of that sort of period. You know, everybody knows Blair, Oasis, blah, blah, blah. But there was a piece of music I remember that really grabbed me to the point where I even bought the bloody CD single, and it was Space Neighborhood in 1996. Do you remember that song? In My Beautiful Neighborhood?
No.
And it's incredible. Liverpudlian band. And it just had literally, it is about a...
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Sorry.
It is about a scummy neighborhood in Liverpool that they're going to ultimately knock down. It's supposed to be a little essay about what was going on in England at the time. And here are my two favorite lyrics from it. In 666, there lives a Mr. Miller. He's our local vicar and a serial killer. And then the other classic Liverpudlian line is, in 999, they make a living from crime. The house is always empty because they're all doing time. It's just a genius song. A genius song. The video cost 50p to make. It's just beautiful.
That's lovely. Neil Clifford, make sure you continue your education for the intern in manager's office.
I've met him. He's a
I was 100% convinced you were going to say, and his hero is Neil Diamond.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit taken aback with Neil Clifford. Anyway, I'm going to be give me a minute of being slightly sort of deep and philosophical here. Pre-COVID, if my daughter said, "Dad, do you want to come and see Harry Styles with me at Wembley?" I would have said, "Oh, forget it. You know, I don't want to come and see Harry Styles. Go with your mum or something. I'm too busy." But you know what? I said, "Absolutely, darling. I'm going to come with you because I can see 60,000 people with their shoes and handbags. But also, why wouldn't you do it? Because it's just a fun thing to do." And Harry Styles is a man that drives around Hampstead and Highgate in a yellow convertible E-Type. So he loves cars. And he is our Elvis, he is our what is he? Justin Timberlake, Robbie.
Yeah.
You know, he's the man of. There's always in every era an adorable man that's super handsome that can sing and dance and be wonderful, and he is the current one. And you know what?
And can act.
Yeah, and can act. And you know what? And got brilliant hair. And of course, people with no hair always have incredible hair jealousy. And we're all jealous of Harry Styles' hair, but you know what? It was just a positive, wonderful, fantastic, joyful night. And you think about what our kids have been through with fucking COVID and lockdown and shitty GCSEs like my kids, and not doing their A levels and schooling from home, and a war in Europe and all this shit that then comes out of the BBC, which is like negative the whole bloody time. To be away from all of that and see these 50,000 amazing young people having the most wonderful night and helping their mental health and their anxiety and just being fucking cheerful, I thought it was great. And he's got a song called Keep Driving. And it's magic about a long, long car trip and the stuff that goes on. And we should all love Harry Styles and just love the joy that it brings to young people.
Here.
I'm a total convert as well. I just think he's cool. Underestimate the magic of pop artists. They can be wonderful. Right. Chris Cooper.
Glastonbury. Can't go through music this week without thinking about Glastonbury. So a bit like you, Monkey, with the Isle of Man TT, somebody who I know quite well was at Glastonbury this weekend. In fact, wife of a good colleague and pal of mine down here was at Glastonbury with a few of her friends, one of whom was Edward's mother, in a motorhome at Glastonbury.
Party!
That's cool.
And so I ended up watching quite a bit of Glastonbury on the TV and thinking about Rick Astley and how far his journey's come. and how amazing he must
He's got good
feel
hair.
being on. And I read a bit about him this week. He said, 20 minutes before he was due to be on stage on Sunday morning, I think, there's nobody there. 5 to 11 or 12, whenever his slot was, suddenly there were 80,000 people in the field, and he was just blown over by it. And I thought about this song and this artist, because somebody who's close to our family suffers from the same affliction, Tourette's affliction. And it's an extraordinary song. And there was an extraordinary moment at Glastonbury where this artist, in front of an enormous crowd who had enormous love and goodwill for him, realized that he was having, an event, an attack of Tourette's. And he was clearly very, very torn between being embarrassed, because we all grew up with the sort of the cartoonish, and it's not like that. And my person that I know, a young lady who is dealing with it, and she's working really hard to deal with it, and she's working incredibly hard at school and is having fantastic sporting success in her rowing. And it was an amazing moment. And so my song for this week is by Lewis Capaldi, and it's Someone Who Loved You.
He's a legend.
Brilliant.
I have no idea what it's like to stand up on a stage with that many people watching you and then suddenly realizing you can't function. That's unimaginable.
It was a beautiful moment, wasn't it? Everyone was singing. People were sitting on other people's
Someone You Loved.
shoulders,
Yeah.
singing along, and just took him through it. It was beautiful.
I'm afraid I haven't got a good story to go with this, beyond the fact that about 10 years ago, maybe more, I was looking on YouTube at videos of early DTM because I'm sad. And that's what I was doing before I went to bed. And there was a brilliant montage video of some DTM cars. Many will have seen it. It's a fantastic load of clips of, great names like Outsons and going further back than that, all the big names. And they used to do sprint races at the Nordschleife. And the opening shot is of a car jumping to this piece of pop music that couldn't sound more 80s by a German band. Now, I speak a bit of the old German, and I can't understand a word of this song because it's in something called Kölnisch, which is a Cologne dialect of German that is impenetrable to most German speakers. It's by a band called BAP, B-A-P. That's a B for Brenda. And it's called Verdammt lang her. And we'll write it down for you. It's the finest 80s synth pop song ever written by a German group. And I have it on every playlist and I listen to it at least once a week. I absolutely adore it. It's just freaking brilliant. It's got tempo, it's got drive. Reminds you that there's some great German pop music out there. It's not just Kraftwerk. So yeah, get a bit of Verdammt lang her down you this week and you're going to love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so have a great week. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you very much to my panel of Defender-loving lunatics, Manish Pandey, Neil Clifford, Chris Cooper and his bottle of rosé, and of course, Edward Lovett. And we will see you and hear from you next week.